I feel like every time we do this, we should start with a prayer. All right, so this is what's happening on the AI front. I'm watching, and you probably are seeing these very same things. People are talking about this new advancement in technology, this smarter than human being thing, being artificial intelligence, not being really much different than those past revolutions that we faced. Not war type revolution, but I guess in some people's mind, when they were unable to continue with their particular life and it was interrupted by some event in the past, like the agricultural revolution or the industrial revolution. This created a lot of problems. But of course, as everybody says, as they talk about AI, we've recovered. But if you were back then, I can't imagine how that would have been easy. In fact, if you were a ditch digger or somebody that, toiled the soil, toiled the soil by hand, and then all of a sudden machines come in and replace your livelihood, I can't imagine how that would be something that would excite that particular person. The displacement now is going to be different. It's going to be about people that are on the more educated realm, more white collar work. And it seems that AI is going to have more difficulty. It's going to take longer for AI to adapt to the people that are actually doing functional, physical type employment or jobs. Plumbers, for example. I heard it said the other day, if you want to ensure your longevity, become a plumber, learn some sort of a trade. And I know there's some great influencers that talk about this and have talked about it for a long time. But right now, the attention is poised at the particular jobs that AI will eventually replace, probably in short order. Now, they say that these rumors have been around, these causes, these events, these big dystopian projected outcomes have been around since the 16 or 1500s, talking about particular things actually replacing. Even in the 1600s, one cat was talking about in the 16th century, talking about fears around automation and how history rhymes, past discussions dating back to the 16th century. And it didn't break it back then, but back in the 16th century, when people were imagining maybe having some kind of automatic or autonomic agentic type being having been created by man, that wasn't even a possibility. Now, maybe at the time they thought it was. Maybe somebody built something very mechanical, and it gave an appearance like it had some kind of life inside of it. And then from there, their imagination took them to the next level. And then they're, of course, worried, and they created this kind of worry amongst other people in their world. This is different, folks. This is something, the development of AI technology and the way that it's grown, it is learning itself. It is teaching itself. Pretty soon, if it hasn't already, because I'm sure not everything is out there for us to see, it might be building itself. I know that it's making itself better. And in fact, some of the things that scare me, well, make me a bit nervous is when you look at the past models, just talking about games, for example. I'm not a great chess player. I'm not a great online game player. I had some friends growing up that were just fantastic at both of those things. But when you take the artificial intelligence and you show it how to play chess, typically those first models, the ones that beat the great chess masters of the world, they were trained off human data, human movements. They took the human beings that played the game, and then the human beings taught the machine. And then, of course, it gets better, it gets faster, it understands every movement, and it blows way past human beings in mentality, because now it knows every single possible move and then how to thwart it. And it understood it. So eventually it got powerful enough, fast enough, and intelligent enough, knowledge based enough to be able to beat any human being in chess. Well, then they started playing the AI against each other. And what they found is when they trained AI on the rules of the game alone, with the clear objective of winning, and they removed all the human data, it was only at that time it was able to beat the AI bots that were trained in chess from humans. But it did, and it beat them all the time. Therefore, the data set that AI is using when it's basically given the rules and instruction without human data, it seems to perform better than when it uses human data to rely. And maybe because we're not perfect creatures as we would like to think. We're probably not as creative and as amazing as a lot of people would like to think. Don't become weird about that because I am saying it. I feel the same way, but that doesn't affect me because I'm a pretty darn good human as far as I'm concerned, and you should be thinking the same way. In fact, I try to grow as much as I can, try to continue to be neuroplastic, have that neuroplasticity that they always talk about, trying to keep my mind moving at 56, trying to understand things, trying to keep in shape, trying to currently always at all times trying to make myself better, try not to be addicted to things and these sorts of items. So I am in the human realm very, very good as far as I'm concerned. And some humans are on either end of that spectrum. Sometimes it breaks down to mentality. How do you really feel about yourself? What's your emotional connection? I find that the past is a fantastic teacher, but it's a fantastic teacher to learn the lesson and then let the past go. In addition, I can't do a lot about that next thing that's going to happen. I can prepare. I can try to think about everything that might be happening to me in the next day or two. Realistically, though, it's now that I'm present, now that I have some semblance of control. I can decide whether to have a drink of this coffee or not. I can put it down and pick it back up. I can make those decisions. What's going to happen an hour from now, I submit. I don't know. And the more that I embrace that and look more now than future, I think it helps. However, with regard to all dangers, human beings, we were engineered, we have become ones that do have the ability, which kind of does set us apart from at least the rest of the animals. We're able to kind of formulate ideas, thoughts, perspectives on things that are going to be happening in the future. Hence this video, hence something to consider when AI is a revolution of its own right, probably up there with the discovery and control of fire. AI is something that's going to expand intelligence, making a system smarter than every human being on the planet combined. That will happen. When that's going to happen, some people say that that super intelligence level is years away. I believe once the artificial general intelligence equation solved, which it might have been, because that's when the system really starts to refine and make itself better. It's able to build itself better. It's able to improve its code. It's able to improve its reach, its permissions. Basically, it becomes autonomic or autonomic, agentic in a certain way where it's operating itself. The only thing that's going to restrict it is the creators, if they still have control and if they haven't given it too many permissions, too much access, too much breadth, maybe they'll be able to control it. And if the systems are aligned with human values, not the crappy human values that it's learned from watching us interact with each other on social media, competing with the Jones and hating on each other because we don't like the opinions, and all of us becoming these keyboard gangsters at will. Now, there's a lot of things that people say online to each other that they would never say in front of another person's face because they're probably worried about getting punched. Maybe that's not the world that you're in now, but that's the world that I ascribe to. When I'm watching online, I try to keep it the same that I would do in front of somebody else if somebody asked the question. I have my moments, but most times I try to keep it very much under lock and key and try to only say things that I would not regret being found out later. Growing up in the way that I did and you did, if you're my generation, there was a time that we weren't really concerned about people recording us. In fact, that was left to the high level politicians, if you will. Those recordings, those back room meetings with smoke filled rooms and low hanging lights. Maybe in those types of events, but really it was far between. It's even having to encounter that. In fact, telephones, we had a party line. We shared the phone with everybody on our block. wasn't until we got our own phone line, several years into my life, that changed. And then even with that, there was no recording, there was no voicemail, there was no way to record it. But then after a while, technology grew. We got an answering machine. That was fantastic. So people could leave messages so we could call them back later. But if somebody else called during the time we were on the phone, we got a busy signal. I don't know if the new generation knows what a busy signal is, but beep, beep, beep. Basically, the phone was busy. And you can kind of tell, if I remember, by the how fast or how slow the beeps were, if it was some system error, if they were actually on the phone. Then after a while, the phone company, Mountain Bell, Ma Bell, we were in New Mexico, so that was Mountain Bell. You had Central Bell, Pacific Bell. I don't know what the East Coast was, but you had these different AT&T based Bell systems that were in operation. They were the local phone company. But after a while, they had call waiting. Call waiting was interesting. You'd be on the phone, somebody would call in, you would hear a beep or two, and you had to actually push the hang up button on the phone. And we had slimline phones, twin line phones, desktop phones, and things you see in movies. We had cordless phones with extendable antennas that were pretty cool when they came out. But you would basically push the hang up button really quickly, not too long, but really quickly it would switch over to the other call. If you pushed it or your finger held too long, then you disconnected all the one call that you were on the phone with. I think you were still able to pick up, but I don't recall. So technology's really changed. And those types of things, when people didn't have to wait to get home at a certain time to receive a phone call, like I remember my dad, don't get on the phone tonight, I'm expecting an important call from work. So that's between 5 and 6. I don't want you on the phone. God forbid Dad catching you on the phone between 5 and 6, because there was no call waiting. There was no answer machine. That phone needed to be clear so he could have this important call that sometimes people wouldn't call back. But people have the patience to wait. Now there is no waiting. There hasn't been waiting for a long time. We are very quick to want to get the answer to the question. And if we don't know, we don't take time to go to the library, look it up in the Rolodex, find the book, research the book, look in the book, read the book. After you get through the table of contents, finding a place in the book to give us our answer. Now we did ask Almighty Google, and now we ask Almighty AI. AI being trained on all the information out there. It's pretty much up to date. All the different systems, it's only getting faster and better. From what I understand, the only thing holding it back is the amount of energy it has access to and the size of the data centers. But they're building those hand over fist. I don't know how that's going to impact the energy for these different areas. Some people are already talking about it might be detrimental to these particular areas with eating up whatever type of local infrastructure they have, i.e. water, their own energy, fossil fuel expenditures, these sorts of things. But nobody's stopping, nobody's slowing down, nobody's pausing, because it's always told to us that we are in an AI race, which in of itself is like a Cold War with the nukes. Everybody was building a bunch of these things. Now all the countries kind of keep each other in check somewhat, with each having the ability to fire a nuclear weapon at its enemy or somebody else they want to try to get rid of, so they don't. So that holds them down. With AI, it's still being built in that way. So it's like people are kind of talking about it, but nobody's stopping, nobody's slowing down, nobody's, at least from what I see, there doesn't seem to be a lot of rules put into place, because a lot of times those restrictions or regulations by people, they're viewed to be something that would slow the growth. So I guess telling one of these systems that it's not good to kill human beings could slow its ability to be built and slow down its ability, our ability to keep up with other countries, because they might not put those restrictions in there. That's a little sarcastic, but I guess if we say that it shouldn't kill any humans, but the other country builds one that says it's okay to kill humans that are our enemy, well, then you have that. So nobody's really slowing down or stopping. The future is hard to see at this point. I know us as human beings, usually we had this life where we would check out at 70 or 80 years old, whatever the average age was. Usually you screw up your health until you get sick enough. You have that end of life event where you trip or fall, you break a hip or fracture some bone, you never heal from it, you end up dying because you stopped taking care of yourself at some point, or maybe never did. That's kind of the trajectory of a normal human being's life. Now, with AI, if the technology, if the advancements in medicine and you have patents, you have trademarks, you have a lot of things. If the discoveries in medicine are now offered to everyone, given out there for free to a point, what's stopping people from living much longer lives? So your normal trajectory of cashing in your chips at 70, 75, 80 years old, maybe in an unhealthy way, might change quite a bit if they get the entire physical being under a particular type of metabolic control that technology has put forth. So maybe at some point you would be able to have something injected into you that would make all of your systems renew, returning you from an 80-year-old to having a body, physique, mentality, and system of a 30-year-old. The body is a self-healing organism, and if it weren't for environmental factors and things we put into our body that were bad, I believe the body would go much longer than it currently does. But of course, I'm not a doctor, medical professional. That's what I understand and I read. What about AI? Is it going to actually give us access to that kind of longevity? And if it does, what does our future look like? Here's something else I'll talk about. They mention that this revolution is going to be the same as the past revolutions. We're just going to have to get through a certain time. But if we're talking about job loss, as the past revolutions have caused, agricultural got rid of human beings working. The industrial revolution again went to mechanical, got rid of human beings working. Now, all of a sudden, we have this revolution, which is kind of the AI or technological revolution. That's more than likely going to stop human beings from being employed. If all of these different companies are given a choice between having a human being on staff and paying them for medical and for all the other things that human beings get when they're at the job, or they're being offered this autonomous AI agent that works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and is able to improve the bottom line of that business by 5 or 6 times without having to pay a real human being, what are they going to choose? Are they going to choose the human, or are they going to choose the artificial intelligence? 5 times, let's say, better than the human being. And that's probably being conservative. Maybe it'll be more, but you have, and all I did was place on there, it's able to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no days off, 365 days a year. Just that alone is several times better than the human that gets sick, that has vacation, that has days off, that works 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours a day, but on a 40-hour week. So that's it. I'm not talking about maybe the superior access, faster working, higher intelligence quotient, maybe many times higher than the human, because that's where AI is going. Right now, it's Einstein level or better. What does a 300 level IQ in an AI system look like, or a 400, or a 1,000, or a 1,600, or a 10,000 level IQ? No idea. I know I've met some very smart people in the past, and I'll tell you what, they were riveting when what they knew about gave them that high IQ. They were just phenomenal. And in fact, it was almost like when they were speaking, and I picked up bits and pieces, but it was almost like they were talking another language, yet they were speaking to me in English. Now we're going to have AI at many, many levels, more experienced, advanced, more knowledgeable than human beings. What does that scenario look like? How are they going to communicate? Is it going to be using a human-made language? Is it going to be using the coding that we use with Python and C++ or these other types of languages? Basic programming, probably not. But is it going to be using one of those, or is it going to come up with its own that we don't understand any more than a lot of the things and decisions that it's currently making, how that presently happens? Now, we have what we talked about. We have businesses that are all about their bottom line. They are going to be making a lot of money from the implementation of AI. Now, it says that goods and services will probably come down in price. I don't know if that's true, not at least for a while. If they do have major job displacement, the other question is, who's going to be paying for these things? If they do have monetary compensation for different things they currently charge from, going from, let's say, $10 to $5, but the people are broken out of a job because they were replaced with AI, are they really going to be able to even spend half the money on it? And that's going to take a while to trickle down unless there's some controls put in place. They talk about universal basic income. And, I like a free lunch just like the next guy, but there's just something to be said about the feeling you get when you make it yourself. You buy it yourself. You worked your tail off and you paid for it yourself. There's something to be said. Everybody loves a gift. I like to get gifts. I like to get fancy things. But at the end of the day, working for it myself, there's a certain amount of pride there. Producing these videos myself and not having AI clone me and put me out there so everybody else can see. Having the mistakes, having the crutch words, saying so all the time. God, it drives me crazy. So those sorts of things. So AI is something that, yes, I can use. Yes, I can leverage. But there's part of me that really wants to keep this like this and keep talking about it in this way. And I believe people still want to see a real human being. I know when I'm looking and I see some kind of a news report, it doesn't even have to sound really out of bounds. But my first question is that critical thought approach. Is this real? What's the purpose? Are they trying to sway my belief system? Are they trying to take me from thinking this way to thinking this way? Who's producing it? Are they a verified source? Do I know them? Are they a real human being? Or is it some AI agentic video platform that's putting out content because, well, it's done so easily now. All you have to do is you can actually build an agent with Manus or Operator, one of the other systems, N8N or Make. You can put this stuff out there and it'll basically generate content by your command about whatever the top 10 YouTube videos that get the most traffic. When they're talking about AI, it will produce that, the AI avatar speaking to the people. And yes, that's a good thing. And right now, that's probably going to take off. Some of the most famous social media influencers are probably going to be completely fake, just good ideas of people that were constantly made up. You know, that one voice you always hear that's always talking with all of the different Instagram and YouTube shorts, that voice, it's a male voice, that was tuned in a particular way to be most accepted, most appreciated, and most interesting. It basically looked at human behavior, what voices human beings liked, and it started to do testing. And that was the voice they came up with. It's that normal traditional voice. I know you've heard it because it said, well, this is the same voice I heard on this other video, and it's a completely different channel. Pretty soon, visually, you will have, it's already happened, but you'll start having influencers that in some visual format ascribe to many of the masses. And then they'll take that and then they'll change that into different offerings, different visuals that are going to attract particular sections of the world. So it'll go from being more broad to more niche. So then you'll start to see, there's that so. Then you will start to see all of these different formats. And those particular AIs are going to be probably the most famous in the world. There'll come a point, mark my words, I would guess, I hope, there'll come a point when people say, I'd rather see a human. I would rather watch this done by somebody I know that glitches. Have you ever gotten those emails that are so perfect in nature, but you've had emails from these people before, and now you're looking at, well, did they get a PhD in English Lit in college recently that I didn't know about? Because the emails changed dramatically. It's almost irritating. I want to tell them, hey, stop that. Usually you misspell words. What are you doing? But that's where the world's probably going to go. And I think people are going to maybe start embracing our non-perfect nature over perfect. Now, is AI going to be able to make adjustments and make themselves look a little glitchy, a little non-perfect? Absolutely. It already knows. We gave it the secret sauce. We gave it our code. We've showed it all about the best of us and the worst of us. And we showed it that we like the worst things better than the best things. And that's really a little tragic and something to consider. I will leave you with this. There's a lot that's going to happen over the next several months. This could go a lot faster than even the experts think. Do yourselves a favor. You need to check in with AI. You need to learn about it a little bit. You need to ask it some questions, and you need to just take it nice and easy. If you have a job, if you work for somebody, start asking yourself the question, how would they be able to replace me using artificial intelligence? In what way? Because right now, the agentic platforms are starting to really become a lot more user-friendly. Cost is going down dramatically. You can basically give a prompt, a crappy prompt, prompt meaning a question or a task to an AI agentic agent, and it will go out and do all the research and all the work for you and come back with whatever it is you want. You can have a business in a box. You can have it come and give you the top 5 stock trades out there and what to invest your money in. It will go out and do all the research, and it will constantly verify if that's what you want, and it will give you the proof that it did what it was supposed to do and used only verified sources. This is something that's really changing the way people think. But if you're still wondering what it does and how it works, or you're still using it like you would make a Google inquiry, you need to change your pattern of thought. This isn't Google. Whenever I start programming an agent on any one of the systems, Grok has become one of my favorites. But when I'm starting to put together a workflow, I do program the agent, telling it what its role is. You are a top copywriter in the SEO and AEO space. Your job is to take the content, a transcript from a video that I prepare, and go through it and then expand it into a blog article at over 5,000 words. Your job as a top SEO and AEO expert. You see the point? So that's the prompt. And then I go back and refine it. I'll test it. I'll go back and refine it. And you can have AI make the prompt for you as well. Write me a prompt, the best prompt that you can. I'm looking to have this particular thing done or accomplished. There's a lot you can do. I know this kind of went a little around everywhere. Watch yourselves, be careful. I don't know how it's going to end up with, if they do decide that a UBI, or universal basic income, is the way to go. These changes aren't going to happen fast. This feels like just one day we're going to wake up and there's going to be just a massive shift in everything. Just like right now, because we're closing out June 2025 with the war, with the Iran issue, the Israel issue, with America being involved in all that. It kind of feels funny, like we could wake up all of a sudden and everything would be different tomorrow. Be good to each other. Don't forget your human connections. I'm Connor with Honor. I do appreciate you watching, and we will see you in the next one. Take care.